Everybody has something in their life they would like to change. Maybe several things they want to change, but they never get around to it. Why? We have the power in ourselves to change, but oftentimes we don't. What's the secret there? What's a component that we can change in ourselves that would cause this transformation? Hey, I'm Pastor Scott Thom, and I'm going to share a little bit today about how you can make small changes to dramatically change your life. Let's look at some of the obstacles to change and how we can make positive steps to impact our lives for the better. We just don't change because we're creatures of habit, but we can control what we say, what we think, and what we do. Now, when we think of change, sometimes we get overwhelmed with change or we don't know where to start. But if you make small changes right away, you get started. So you have to pick an area you want to change in, think about the direction you want to go, but what's one of the small things and small steps you can do right now? And then when you think about that, you have to stop and not just make that change in that step. You have to change you. You have to change your thought process. You have to change your outlook. You have to change your direction. If you don't change you, if you don't change the way you think or where you're coming from or your goal setting or that kind of thing, you will always slide back into old habits and the old you. The new you has to come from the inside because changes just on the outside will never become permanent unless you have a change of mindset and heart. And so we have to fight being comfortable. We live to a comfortable or a tolerable level, right? When we become comfortable, we become complacent. We stop pushing forward. We stop change. But we must change. Otherwise, we become like an old wineskin. Remember when Jesus talked about old wineskins? Here he was bringing something far better for life, far better than the old covenant, this new covenant, this covenant of grace. And people were rejecting it because they were just comfortable with the old. And he said it's like sewing new fabric into an old cloth that when you wash it, that fabric shrinks and it's going to tear. Or like old wineskins, right? When you put new wine into old wineskins, the fermenting process causes it to expand and you will burst an old wineskin because it just won't expand anymore. It won't accept change. And he tells us, don't be an old wineskin, because when we become comfortable and life becomes very tolerable, we don't like change, but we've got to do change. Let me tell you a story about Dan Jansen. Here's a kid, 14 years old. He's eating the regular human diet, and he decides he needs to make a change. So he chooses to become a vegetarian. And he does that for a while, but then he comes to the realization he doesn't like vegetables all that well. That he came across an article on the cheese pizza diet. Yes, it was a real thing for a while. So he ate cheese pizza morning, noon, and evening for 25 years. Yes, he even worked for Domino's Pizza for a while so he could get discounts on pizza so that he could eat that for every meal for 25 years. Now think about this. He wanted to make a change. He did. Some of us would say not really for the better, right? But he's done it for 25 years until he got a girlfriend. And once he got a girlfriend and she said, hey, you need to change, he was kind of motivated to change, wasn't he? And so he started seeing a nutritionist and he started to change his diet. But he could do it. It just shows you the power that if you have a mindset, if you change your inner mind, your inner heart, your motivation, you can do most anything. So you can change yourself. You can change the way you speak to yourself. If you're negative to yourself, just start changing and compliment yourself, or don't say something negative. compliment someone else. You can change your eating habits. You can maybe give up something for a week or two just to change, just to mix things up, because it'll cause you to break out of that habit, that tolerable level, or that comfortable system and routine that you're in. Now, the other reason is we're just lazy. We don't like change. Change usually equals work. The Society of Automotive Engineers did a study. They found that 2 million car crashes every year were created because people didn't use their turn signal when they were changing lane or when they were going around a corner. What's amazing is why. Out of that percentage, half of the people said they didn't use their blinker because it took too much time. The other half said, and these are the people who are honest, the other half said they didn't use their blinker because they were lazy. But think of the repercussions of this. Almost 2 million accidents a year because people didn't use their blinkers because they didn't make it a habit, or they were too lazy, or didn't have the time. You change your life in small ways and change your habits and change your attitude to honor God. Whether we're comfortable or not, we're stewards of God's time, God's money, energy. Our bodies, our lives are not our own. And so we work for the betterment because we want to honor God. The things that slow us down is the world, our flesh, the enemy, causing us to go backwards. So let's not develop a backsliding habit. And the way to get out of that, or the way to avoid that, is not to just stay comfortable where you are, because if you stay where you are, it's inevitable that you'll backslide, because you're always getting drawn down by the world, by the flesh, by the enemy. And so we're not to be conformed to this world, but transformed by the renewing of our mind. Once we renew our mind, it should translate into habits, to changing what we do, what we say, and what we think. That benchmark means that it's always something that you're striving for. To have a benchmark is something that causes you to evaluate yourself on a regular basis. Now, the things we don't like, or maybe you do like it, is having that weight scale at home. And when you stand on it, it's a benchmark. It tells you what you weigh. Your bank account is another benchmark. It tells you how much you have in the bank. These are things that are concrete that you measure your activity by, but you also then measure your activity by the Word of God. If you don't have the things you want to change written out, then you never have a benchmark. You won't change. You'll stay comfortable, or you'll change in the wrong direction. So how do we break free from everyday routines or from the world pulling us back? By having a mindset of connecting with God and asking God, what would you like to see change in me? And when you begin to ask that, and then write out the thoughts, and don't be afraid of this, God is gentle. He's going to help you with this. God's word, God's character, God's nature is our ultimate standard. It's an absolute standard. In Hebrews 1:12, it says this, like a cloak, you will fold them up and they will be changed, but you are the same and your years will not fail. God is the only unchanging thing. The things that we change for eternity, being our spirit, our heart, our attitude, our love for God, that's a permanent thing that can go on and extend past this world. But everything in the world is going to grow old, be folded up, and wither away and be gone. Always be thinking and working on how you can change your attitude, your actions, and your thinking. When you aren't going in the direction you should be going, or you say something that you shouldn't have said, check it, correct it, and then move forward. If you need to apologize, you apologize. If you need to go back and fix something, you fix it. And that will work towards empowering you to change. Because when you put the effort and the thought into doing what is right and then making sure that it happens, you begin to change on the inside. When you're doing it because it's your choice on the inside, pretty soon that's what you become. That attitude, that person that you're proud of, that God is proud of. Here's where you start. Be diligent on something small. Get started on it. You can take large steps, but usually it's something small. But for whatever you take something out, put something in. Small changes can do great things. There was a California student, his name was Survey Mirchanadali. And this student just wondered one day when he got this multiple handouts from the school district, and he thought, how much money could they save if they just changed the font, because ink is so expensive. If you measure it out by the ounce, it's about $75 an ounce for some printers. Pretty expensive. So he set up a computer program that examined the foremost used fonts from the school district, and he found that Garamond was the one that saved the most ink. Matter of fact, it saved a significant amount of ink. So much so, then he contacted the state office and found out how much his district printed and how much they circulated in a year. And annually, they could save somewhere around $27,000 a year if they would just change their font. Small change, right? But that's an amazing thing. So you can make such a change by changing small things every single day. And when you do that, it's amazing how much it'll accumulate and it'll pay off in the long run. So let me give you some examples. You could take one food or food group out of your life that you don't want to have in your life to change your health. When you do that, add one food or food group into your life that would help you or benefit you. Now, do this until you feel comfortable and you make changes in that till that becomes the norm in your life. It's a habit. You've changed your life. If you do this over and over in a short period of time, you can change your whole eating habits. Or you could just start eating cheese pizzas. I don't know. It's so funny. If you have a fear of the future and you're always filled with anxiety, start countering that with just telling God you trust Him and rejecting that fear. Then when it comes up again, you reject the fear and you tell God you trust Him. Now, if you can take steps to alleviate that fear by working harder or praying more or engaging with people or getting wise counsel, do that. But don't let fear or anxiety control you. It's not of God. Or maybe you're just stuck with procrastination. Then what you do is you set yourself a to-do list and you put it somewhere where you must see it, whether it's on the refrigerator or it pops up on your computer, and try to choose one thing on that. Even if you don't complete it, but you start it, then the next day you can do a little bit more and a little bit more till it gets done. Then take the next thing on the list. And pretty soon what will happen is you'll have small changes that turn into a habit that benefits your life. And you'll be so pleased over that. And if you begin to conquer the small things, you begin to conquer your life. You begin to conquer the big things. And pretty soon your life has changed for the better. So guess what? Smile and make life happen. Hey, we've got other videos here that are going to be a blessing to you. Check them out. This is Pastor Scott Thom signing off. Love you guys. See you next week.